does record this. They are here, but that does mean we need to speak into the mics when you're giving your presentation, if you can do so. Peter has advised me that he has another obligation fairly soon, so we're going to begin with him. Just go around and say your words and try to be out here by 8:30. Peter.
Good morning, Peter Hunter, Chair of the Recreation Commission. I have some parting gifts here for take. It's the latest, right off the press brochure for the fall, the fall and winter programs. It's a new and improved brochure. Hopefully, you'll get it in the mail. Sometimes it will be. Folks tend to throw them in the trash, but hopefully you'll keep these and review them. Despite the fact that we have everything online, these brochures are pretty popular, and folks typically register for these brochures. In any case, it's a lot of great programs, a lot of programs for kids, adults, everybody. Continuing to improve them both at the Beatty Center and the Hunt Gym, and feel free to review those. In terms of other things going on, the summer was very active for the Recreation Commission, in addition to the camps, which were full, completely full for the whole summer. We had a number of other activities, including music events that went on over the summer, very successful. Have a number of programs going on in the fall, including basketball, of course, before and after school programs, and a number of things that are all in these programs. In addition to that, the Beatty Center has gone through some renovations. I don't know if anybody's got an opportunity to see that, but within a 1 week's period of time, we did a significant amount of work to do a little facelift on the facility. And with the new director there, we've got a number of programs that we're going to be implementing, so we're pretty excited about progress we're making at the Beatty Center. From a facility standpoint, everybody knows about the Duro land. There's a public meeting with respect to that on Tuesday, October 16th at the Harvey Wheeler Center to sort out, what we do with that beautiful property. There's, I'm sure many of you heard about the White Pond potential gift that town would have to accept. I guess it's October 1st is the meeting at 7 p.m. Special town meeting. Other than that, small facilities things, we've improved the basketball courts in the Emerson playground. There is a little bit of an issue with the new track at Emerson. Apparently grass is growing through the new surface we put in there. So if you hear about that, you're on it. Other than that, with respect to this, there's one typo. It mentions the tree lighting ceremony. It says it's December 21st. It's actually December 2nd. When the tree lighting is, correction. Other than that, I think that's about it.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? I think one of the really exciting things is the expansion of what recreation will be doing because of Zero Land, and hopefully the White Pond area. So you'll have more on your plate.
We will. We're excited about it. I think the whole White Pond potential acquisition gift is going to help with it.
I have a question. What state? The hearing on October 16th, what state is your land designers or landscape designers, what stage are they at? Are they still very preliminary? Are you accepting thoughts about use or where are you in this?
I don't know, I defer to Tom, do you know? I mean, I know that it's preliminary. I know the landscape designers are doing kind of sketches, but I mean, there's still a lot to be determined and decided.
My understanding is that meeting is going to be more receiving input and getting information rather than here's the plan.
Right.
Oh, good, thank you.
Yeah, we're still early on in town input. I mean, it's a beautiful property, you just gotta figure out what the best means of using it and at a reasonable cost.
I walked it this summer with your organization, Kate Hodges, us and the mosquitoes.
Yes,
It was
the
hot
mosquitoes.
summer night. Thank you.
Jonathan, would you follow up?
Jonathan Cars, this is the Tax Fairness Committee. We've implemented what the town meeting voted, and it seems to be going quite well. We made a great effort to make sure that the communications were carried out. You may be aware there were townwide mailings, there were assessors gave an excellent presentation at the COA, and various church groups were approached and did their work. So the results are financially within what we really didn't know what was going to happen. But what has happened seems to be containable and manageable. There are several people who got very substantial results from the program. And so now what we face is what the future brings. What we voted was what Sudbury originally voted, which was this home rule for 3 years, and then go back to the general court and get them to renew it. But somebody in the general court, when the thing came up for Sudbury to be renewed, said, why the heck should we do that? Let's just make it permanent. So we don't really know what's going to happen when we get to the point that we've got to talk with them about it. But as it stands, we'll probably just renew it. We'll just see what happens. So that's basically where we stand.
It's a fairly good transition into the assessors.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. Christian Fisher, Chair of the Assessing Committee, Board of Assessors, that is. Not much is going on during the summer. We've had a meeting since the last time we met, and we're dealing mostly with statutory exemptions, but we're also dealing with the senior tax exemption, which we were just talking about, which allows seniors that need it to get a discount on their taxes to help them stay in Concord. And we received 59 applications. We've rejected about 10 of them. And so the program's sort of off and running. It's quite a bit of work for the assessor. And other things going on in the assessor's office. People often ask, what does the assessed value have to do with the market price? And every year the assessor needs to produce a report for the Department of Revenue in the state indicating that assessed values are within 10% of the market value. And the assessor did that, and the report passed the test. We are within 10% of market value. Obviously, people know many cases where a house sells, for much more than the assessed value, but in general, we're within 10%.
It's a fairly complicated process that they go through. So.
Right.
Anybody have a question on that? We'll move right along. Maybe take the mic there so that you can be heard.
I'm Rick Eifler, the Concord Housing Authority. Let's see, we had a not inactive summer. We finished a paving project at Everett Gardens, which is our kind of expansion project just behind Peter Buckley Terrace between it and Everett Street. So if you drive by there, you might see some brand new paving leading into our units in there, our elderly units in there. Our next big project will be replacing all of the tubs in those units with showers. Seems like that's the way much more useful for those units. Our programs like that, our capital expenditures like that are kind of planned out and run by DHCD now. They have created a regional capital assistance team called RCAD. If anybody's heard about that or interested in that, I can tell them more. But we're part of the one of the 3 regions that they created, and we get a project manager that they provide. And they run all of the projects. First of all, they help you with your capital planning, and then they run all of the projects that are between $10,000 and $50,000. We would still run little projects under $10,000, and they might offer templates for how to get those out and run those, but the projects between 10 and 50 are run by between ourselves and this project manager, and it seems to be working pretty well. The state, it's a fairly new program, so they're very anxious to make sure that they get their projects going, they spend all the money. They're very big into spending all the money they're supposed to spend. So they're very excited that they've met their benchmarks. We met our benchmark for spending the money we're supposed to spend, and they met their benchmarks across the state, by and large, for spending the money they're supposed to spend. Other things that are going on, we're keeping our eye on the Giroux project, because it's one interesting idea to us is the idea that they might be able to change the entrance to that. If anybody's walked the property, they might be able to change the entrance to that property, which would move the driveway out of the way. It's right next to our little house on 365 Commonwealth, I think that's the address. And if they could move the driveway over so that it enters more into that parking lot for the Freeman Rail Trail, we might be able to open up a little house lot next to our house there, and that would be a potential project for us. So that might be exciting. If anybody's heard, the town is also looking into some purchase some land from Emerson House, and that property actually extends all the way back towards Walden Street, where we have some units next to the courthouse. And not that the land would necessarily, it does touch our land, but it's a lot of flood conservation type land. But the town's informed us that they remapped the wetlands in that area. And the property that we developed previously in 1998, I think, with 6 units, may be able to take a couple more units now that the floodplain map is. So we have some potential projects that we could get moving on if we could find funding, and that's kind of exciting. We have a new truck. That's exciting. And we're working on redecorating the community room at Peter Buckley Terrace, and so that's a little bit of what's going on with us.
Pretty good. Thank you. Any questions, anybody? If you would grab the mic as well. So.
Good morning. Diane Strasberg, Chair of the Historical Commission. I think I would mention 2 major areas of focus that we're going to be working on going forward. One is what we call outreach, our reporting role. 2 areas there. We have reports that we're responsible for that are aging. The historic structures, historic resource inventory. That's the Yellow Book. A lot of people call it the Yellow Book. I think it's still for sale here in the townhouse. And also the narrative histories of Concord and West Concord, which I believe is now out of print. And there's new information that we know that could go in there. And we've had some feedback on both of those reports that people would like to see them available again, updated, and in the case of the Yellow Book, a little easier to use. So we're going to look into how we might do that, whether budget's required, how we might make that happen if we want to do that. The other area there is we want to, I think we're just about ready to begin a series of articles in the journal, similar to what the Concord Historical Collaborative has done, if you're familiar with that. So there would be a series, maybe every 2 months, something like that. We want to focus on informing people about the historic resources in Concord, about preservation activities that have gone on, and also some of the stories behind those resources, and hopefully to just inform people. We may focus on lesser known places and objects and landscapes, and maybe just stimulate some thinking about what people could do as far as preservation goes for their own selves. The other area of focus will be to assess the new, now 2-year-old demolition delay bylaw. So we've been, that's been in effect for about 2 years. We want to look at how well it's working. So we'll look at our own experience with administering that. We'll also look at best practices. Some of the surrounding towns here have been doing a lot of work on that. Newton and Wellesley have been recommended to us, and so we could learn from them. And then also, of course, the town and the appropriate commissions and committees and so forth, and probably have a public hearing at some point. We may or may not come up with recommendations for changes or additions to the bylaw, but we think anything we might come up with is at least 2020 before we would present it. So that's
Right.
our main focus going forward here.
Any questions? Good? Yeah.
Peter, Ann Humphrey, the Dog Park Feasibility Study Committee, one of the things that
He had to go.
I gather did.
First.
Okay, so our committee has been very busy working all summer long on not only investigating the possibility of dog parks in Concord, or places for dogs can walk or use off leash. And we have finished our preliminary report. We've looked not only at possible lands in Concord, but we've looked at costs to produce. We've looked at a whole variety of things, and whether there's even a desire for places for dogs. We finished our preliminary report. We had a hearing earlier in May, I guess it was, to gather information from the public. Now we have finished the preliminary report. We've presented it to the board, the select board. We are going to have a public hearing to present the report as we have done it to the public. That's November 13th. We are very eager to have as many townsfolk, not only dog owners, but non-dog owners, to come and look at it. It's been a topic that was in the town long-range planning, so it's something that we're really thinking about. Serving all the parts of Concord, all Concord owners, dog owners and others. We have, after that, we will be presenting the final report to the Board of Selectmen, hopefully in December, and our job will be done. We worked quite hard over the summer looking at all this and various lands now or in the future that might be suitable for dogs. So that's basically it. We're a small committee and working very hard, and we'll be finished up not too long.
Any questions, or why don't we keep moving along then? Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Terry Ackerman. I'm chair of the Community Preservation Committee. And we have a new member, Judy Sonnenbrecher, representing the NRC. This is our busy season, as a lot of you may know. In 2 more days, our applications are already due for the next cycle. That's September 21st at 4 p.m. That's this Friday. And then the following Saturday, the 29th, we have our site walks. And during the month of October and part of November, we meet with applicants. We have a public hearing in November, and we have to take a vote already December 4th. And that way, our recommendations will be on the town warrant for a vote at town meeting coming up. This year, we're estimated to have 1.5 million approximately, which is a little bit less than last year, with only a state match of 10 or 11%. So that's it. We're looking forward to a busy season.
It does get busy for you all, I know.
Just the next couple of months.
Yeah. Any questions? I think the town is going to have already 9 or 10
Yes,
applications, so that
that's correct.
you'll be busy.
That's right.
Past that, there you go.
Happy Desert from the Agriculture Committee. We just wrapped up Ag Day last Saturday and hope that everyone was able to attend and enjoy the products of Concord. The next event is Stone Soup next Sunday, and there are still tickets available at various places around town and at Barrel Farm. We were unable to have our meeting last week, so we'll be having it tonight to wrap up the details of Ag Day. And everybody's sort of looking forward to a quiet time.
You know, the select board had a table and got a number of green cards as a result of that.
Great.
So it's very helpful to us as well. Thank you.
Matt Johnson, Vice Chair of the Planning Board. It's a little early yet for me. So the first thing I guess I should report on is that we recently finalized our goals for this fiscal year through the town meeting of 2019. And so most of them came from the comprehensive long-range plan. So we're going to look at housing diversity, and by that we mean mostly trying to increase density near the village centers while maintaining character by looking at things like expanded use of accessory units, maybe even duplex zoning like there used to be long ago. Then the next is there have been calls for a formula business bylaw for Concord Center, so we will look at that. We have definitely had lots of discussions around parking relief, and particularly in light of the long-range plans focus on alternative means of transportation and trying to get more walkable city centers or town centers. We may make some changes to our parking requirements. And then there's been a lot of discussion about potential changes to some zoning uses in particular, but also design guidelines within the West Concord Village Center. So those are all things that were kind of sparked by the comprehensive long-range plan. We also have a couple other things that we're looking at that are topical. One is the wireless overlay district. I think that there have been, of course, recent discussions about a couple of different wireless tower proposals. And what we recognized was that, first of all, the overlay district maps were drawn, quite a while ago, and there have been a number of changes to just development and land use since then. And that secondly, there have been huge changes in technology and a lot more study about health effects and so on. So we will be taking a fresh look at all of that and trying to incorporate that in our bylaws, to just reflect these updates. And then the final thing is a housekeeping thing, but it's very important, and we'll see how far we can get, which is around site plan rules and regulations, which we're supposed to have, but we don't. And then our subdivision rules and regs, which are dated. So these are very important because we get many proposals from developers, and we don't provide as much guidance as we probably should. And so the other thing is that there are a number of articles that we need to weigh in on for special town meeting. We will be discussing and coming to a position on those at our September 25th meeting. And then there are a couple of kind of high-profile site plan reviews going on. So one at Old Bedford Road, a planned residential development, 8 units. We had a site visit in August that we expect them to come back to our September 25th meeting. The other is 1440, 1450 Main Street, which is a 36-unit planned residential development. We had our first presentation of that at our most recent meeting last week. There is one affordable unit proposed in that 36-unit development. There are the questions both from ourselves and the public involved, the public benefits being offered, which should be part of a PRD, the amount of fill and removal that is being proposed. I think someone estimated 880 dump trucks worth of fill being removed from the site. the amount of tree cutting, unit sizes, and all of them have 2-car garages. And the developer says that their only viable alternative is a 22-unit subdivision, which he plans to present at our next go-round, which would be probably in October. We will have a site visit in early October.
Fairly sizable amount of work you got ahead of you. Any sense of when the wireless overlay district information will be?
That's over the course of this fiscal year. That's not the most urgent thing on our list, as you could see. It's something we definitely want to work on, and there is, in particular, that one area around Middlesex School where there was a lot of recent discussion, and so there's both that particular instance, but then we really thought, well, we should put this in the context of overall changes.
Monday select board meeting, we're going to be having Verizon come again and kind of discussing, because we're finding that a lot of calls are getting dropped in the center of Concord.
Yeah.
And for obviously safety and health reasons, we're concerned about that. So,
Right, so we have a lot of
Yeah.
service versus health versus, lots of things to consider.
Great.
Just a question,
Yeah.
sorry, on that. On the Main Street project, it's going from 36 to 22 units.
Well, let's just say that's an alternative. So basically, what the developer's telling us is we can either go for this 36-unit PRD, or it's discretionary for us. We could say, no, we don't want a PRD. But then the alternative is a 22-unit subdivision.
And when would it likely be built?
That, I can't really speak to that, but I mean, I don't think that they would wait around. Yeah.
Right, okay. Thanks.
Morning, everybody. Carmen Reese, Town Moderator. We have a special town meeting coming up, as you all should know already. And everyone should have gotten this warrant. There are 13 articles. There are no citizen petitions. It's uncertain at this point whether all 13 of the articles will be moved, but probably, so we'll know more about that in the next few days. We will use the auditorium as our primary location for the special town meetings, since we're expecting a smaller crowd, but we will still have an overflow area in the gymnasium available if we need it. And the standard provisions for parking and council on aging shuttles and so forth are all in place. Hearing has already happened, and the website has the materials that were presented at the hearing. For those of you who missed it and are interested, you should also be able to see the hearing on the CCTV. Are we calling it MMA yet?
I don't think for a couple of days.
Okay. Apparently October 1st, the day of the special town meeting, is also the day that CCTV becomes MMN, Minuteman Network. But on their website, you'll be able to see the footage of the hearing if you missed the hearing. Wi-Fi is going to be a lot more. We will put all the materials associated with the articles on the website, as well as having them on paper at the special town meeting. So people will still be able to, if you don't. We remain hopeful that someday we'll have a lot less paper and that people will be able to look at the materials electronically. Wi-Fi has gotten a lot more complicated at the high school, so that you now have to log on and go through a series of steps and enter passwords, and your password gets sent to you by text or email, and then you have to put it in. So it's a lot more complicated than it used to be, but it's all doable, and we'll have the address up on the wall for you that you go to, and then you'll just follow the prompts in order to connect to Wi-Fi. So I think that's about it for special town meeting. And as soon as we're done with special town meeting, we're back in the saddle working on annual town meeting.
Tom.
Pardon me. I'm Tom Tarpey. Chair of the Finance Committee. We have a very important meeting coming up a week from tomorrow, September 27th, at which we'll be hearing from the Finance Director about how we stand in fiscal 19 so far, along with her projection of what revenues should be for the remainder of fiscal 19. And that will sort of bear very heavily on our whole guidelines process, which has begun with letters going out to the 3 budgeting entities in town back in July. And we will also, in the context of the guidelines meetings, we'll be having quite a bit of discussion about the relationship between growth and sustainability. This is a continuation of our so-called guardrail process, excuse me, and this is in an effort to sort of shape the budgets for years ahead, helping guide the budgeting entities of the town maintain a safe budgetary growth limit. Let's see, the finance department will also be coming out with the 5-year projection, which will of course also bear on that whole guardrail process. Special town meeting will be, the articles in special town meeting will be quite an active source of discussion at our meeting next week, as will the sort of magnitude or the number of articles at this special town meeting. There are a number of the finance committee members who are disturbed that some articles are being moved at special town meeting that probably would better be moved in the context of regular town meeting. There's some concern that this, should it become a tendency, would have a deleterious effect on our budgeting cycle and how we analyze town expenses. So that will be a major topic of discussion at that meeting next week.
When we go over, yes.
I just wondered if you move here and move here, and then they can use this. Sure.
I'm Janet Miller, Chair of the Comprehensive Sustainability and Energy Committee. We've had a pretty busy summer. The most recent event was the electric car event on Saturday, which was primarily organized by Brian Fultz, who is not on our committee. He was not on any committee, but he's now joined the Climate Action Advisory Board. He got all the cars in. He got an organization called Reach Strategies, which actually ran the Ride and Drive program. So there were, I think there were about 6 cars there of different kinds, of Bolt, a Volt, a Tesla, and I can't remember which others. I think a Pacifica, but they were all plug-in hybrids or fully electric vehicles. People could test ride, and I know a number of people walked away because the lines were too long. Those cars were busy the entire time. There was Kate Hanley, the sustainability director, was there with the new town's Nissan Leaf, which has a logo on it saying Sustainable Concord, and that was purchased with a grant that she applied for from Green Communities. CMLP were there with their Nissan Leaf, and they had information about the new incentives for driving electric vehicles, for charging and installing chargers, and I'll let the light board tell you about that, not me. There were also electric bicycles that people had a lot of fun riding around, and there were a lot of individual car owners brought their cars to show off, and then there were some sustainability organizations like the Union of Concerned Scientists and Green Streets, which is trying to push alternate modes of transportation. So anyway, that was a busy time, and CSEC, was primarily involved with
getting the volunteers there, but also doing the publicity before the event. So that took some time. Then Heat Smart program, the sign-up time is over. The installations are still ongoing, and we know that 25 people in Concord are getting air source heat pumps and 8 ground source heat pumps. There may be more, particularly the air source, because we know that people signed up, decided to have the work done by a different contractor from the one that was working with Heat Smart, and they still get a rebate from CMLP, so those numbers are likely to go up. And the rebates will continue, and so we still want to encourage people to get air source heat pumps, particularly if they have oil heating, propane heating, or the rare person who has baseboard electric heat. So going forward, there's a municipal vulnerability preparedness program, and tomorrow I will be attending a workshop. Actually tomorrow and Friday, so I'm going to be there pretty much all day. It's an invitation only workshop, so we will see where that takes us.
Thank you. Any questions or move right along then? Thank you.
I'm Tom Martin of the Cultural Council Chair, and our season is just about to get started. We have our first meeting next Tuesday at the Hunt room at 6 o'clock. We're going to introduce new members and get the ball rolling. We have reimbursed people from last year for grants that they received, all except for 5 that I've sent out letters to and said, please ask for your money. The announcement for this year's program is supposed to be in the Concord Journal this week with all the information required. It was supposed to be there last week, but there was some sort of issue with that. And looking forward to it. We don't have our final budget yet. I hope to have it by next week.
Full membership those already?
We have 5 members now.
Good.
We have Betsy Levinson is our newest member. I have not met her yet, but looking forward to it.
Terrific. Thank you. Any questions? Musical chairs here.
Well, thank you for providing a new one for us to play. I'm Carlin Reed. I'm the chair of the PEG Access Advisory Committee, and we've had a couple of interesting projects going on, one of which is what Carmen has already alluded to, the transition from CCTV to the Minuteman Media Network, which will occur at an inadvertent stress time of October 1. We've got the town meeting, but there are also some public and education programs going on, so we're really putting CCTV and MMN through their paces, and so far it looks like it's going fairly well. A couple small hiccups, but I think everything seems to be flowing well, so we shouldn't have any problems at town meeting, either here or in Carlisle, or if there's an extension of this. So that was one of the concern areas that we were looking at. In our committee, our newest member is Ruth Lauer, and I think we're fully staffed, but I'm not sure. I have to check on that, because I think we may have had one resignation. So there may be a space available. We've also been notified that the town of Carlisle would like to place a voting member on our committee because of the shared head-in situation that we have. Like the high school, where the program is based out of with both places. I know the Carlisle Board of Selectmen really recently voted to ask Town of Concord to put a Carlisle member on our team. We have an ex officio member already. So we're going to be talking about that issue at our meeting, which is later this morning, actually here in this room. And then the other things we had going on, we're having a kind of a lecture series. I'm bringing in speakers every meeting. Last month we had the Comcast representative come talk to us about the Comcast services, some data, some information about it. We asked them some questions about how to read our cable bill, that sort of thing. This month, we're going to have the assistant town manager give us another update on the transition. And next month, we're going to bring in members from the Department of Telecom and Cable to talk about how cable rates are regulated and what kind of consumer complaint services they offer. So we're functioning fairly well and moving forward and we'll be gearing up for a report to the select board in January.
Your meetings always on the same night in the same room? And
Well, we're settling into a pattern, and it's going to be right after this meeting, 9 o'clock in the morning to 10:30 on the third Wednesday of every month. So that's kind of how it works out at this point, at least through the end of December. Then we'll set out the rest of the meetings after that, depending on people's schedules. You're all welcome to stay after this meeting and join us if you wish. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Yeah.
I neglected to mention that Carlisle will be having their special town meeting on October 2nd. We're going to do our level best to be done on October 1st, since CCTV covers both meetings, among other things. And so there will not be the usual no new business after 10 o'clock motion on October 1st.
Thank you for pointing that out. Make sure everybody knows.
Get ready, that's it.
Mia Glenn, Chair of the Historic Districts Commission. We have met steadily throughout the year, every first and third Thursday of the month. Agendas have been consistently busy all summer long. One of the things I've mentioned in the past is we're looking to expand the historic districts, and we've decided to focus on expanding the Main Street district. The hope is to add 51 homes, which are in the area that includes sort of a triangle around Sudbury Road, Middle Street, Academy Lane, Belknap, and part of Thoreau. Packets were just sent out this week to all 51 owners, and the packet includes a cover letter, map, some frequently asked questions about historic districts, and a survey. And we're getting our feet wet and see what happens. I mean, we're gonna see what the results of the survey are, and depending on those results, we would move ahead with a public hearing, hopefully in October. But at this point, we have no idea how this is going to be received. It may end up being a multi-year process, but our hope would be, if everything went well, that we could proceed with a warrant for town meeting. So this is our first foray into that. Some examples of some of the other things we've been working on. We've been working with Holy Family Parish here in Monument Square. They want to add an addition at the back of the building to accommodate an elevator. And obviously our purview is what is visible from the public way, and the side of that building is very visible from Main Street. So accommodating a boxy addition to the back of that building has not been easy. So we've had multiple meetings on that. We have worked with Market Street Cafe to come up with a suitable barrier for outdoor seating in the alley. And this was necessary for them to get their alcoholic beverage license. We have also been working hard on the exterior lighting for the new Concord Market. This has been a hot button for a lot of the residents in the area. And we've been trying to accommodate public safety and safety for the employees late at night, but still be mindful of residents in the area and keeping the lighting down to a manageable level. So those are just a couple of examples we've been working on.
Thank you. Any questions? Ready to go now?
Okay. Good morning, Ray Considine, Chair of the Board of Health. By contrast, the summer was a quiet one for the Board of Health, which is always a good thing when it comes to health issues. Perhaps with the exception of mosquitoes. We had a moderate risk, the risk level was raised to moderate for West Nile virus. There were a couple of cases in Middlesex County, I believe one case in Concord, but no cases of the more serious triple E, which is really reassuring. And I think we've had some, pardon me, some articles in the journal on how to protect yourself from mosquitoes, which hopefully a lot of people followed. Our September meeting was focused on food code violations. Sorrento's Pizza had multiple violations that were brought to our attention through an inspection. They agreed to, we were forced to make the correction, so they agreed to that. But as a result of one of those corrections, they will no longer be selling single slices of pizza. So if you were getting your single slices at Sorrento because they couldn't maintain the temperature for the slices, they were forced to change that practice. Inspectors also found reason to be cheerful in violation of multiple code provisions. That was a complicated, they were actually fined, a civil fine. It's complicated because reasons to be cheerful has been sold, and that they had to bring the restaurant into, or the ice cream parlor into compliance before transfer of license was effected. They've had a number of plumbing problems, leaking sinks, leaking dishwashers, which then affected the flooring, all of which put them in violation. They dragged their feet on it, but moved very quickly in terms of corrective action. I believe that they're closing for 2 days this week to make those changes. And I think the license transfer will go through by the end of the month. I think we'll all have a lot of reasons to be cheerful, including ourselves, if that happens. We dealt with a couple of septic betterment liens, routine actions on the board. And then something that came up at the meeting, which is really positive. You may be aware that the governor signed into law a comprehensive tobacco control bill in July that would do three things: raise the minimum age of purchase to 21, prevent or prohibit pharmacy sales of tobacco products, and ban flavored cigarettes, all of which I think are very progressive steps in terms of protecting the public's health, particularly younger people. But I think we have a lot to be proud of because Concord passed all those provisions back in 2016, one of the early towns to adopt those best practices in public health. So I think we joined a couple of states, California in particular, that has raised the minimum age of purchase to 21 across the country. So that's my report. Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Question on that point. I mean, while all those tobacco initiatives sound good, what about the sort of e-cigarettes, vaping? Are there any initiatives on that front, either locally or at state level?
Well, the Department of Public Health is looking at that. State Department of Public Health is looking at that. But e-cigarettes has become, and particularly juuling, which is a particular product of e-cigarette, and I think it has become the dominant product in the marketplace today. They've seen sales grow by 400% a year over the past 2 years. So that's a huge increase. We see combustible use, the regular smoking of cigarettes, decline greatly in Massachusetts, but juuling and other e-cigarette uses is skyrocketing, not only in Massachusetts, but across the country, and certainly in Concord as well. So that is an issue for us to be tackling. I think we're going to be looking at more public information forums for parents as one way of getting that news out. But it is a growing problem, and made worse because in an e-cigarette you can put liquid nicotine, but you can also put liquid THC, and it doesn't smell. It's very easy to hide. Kids can do it in laboratories at school, and it is a problem. And concentrated nicotine is very, very addictive. So it is a growing problem, and we're aware of that. We're looking at different solutions or different strategies for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
is Michael Rudd. I'm chair of the Council on Aging. Council is in the process of procuring a new van to replace the one that was bought in 2005. And the original van was funded by the Friends of the Aging in Concord. But the Friends has been very reluctant to fund vans in recent years. So very kindly, the town has stepped in and provided both the last van and this new one, which we're getting this year. And transportation is a major issue for the elderly and was identified in the recent long-term planning. Over the next 12 years, the elderly population in town is going to increase dramatically. 2030 versus 2010 is an increase of 75%. And the transportation needs in Concord, where if you can't drive, there's no taxi service. So getting around is very difficult. So one of the important issues is how can we increase transportation for the elderly who can't drive in town. And one thought was to maybe try and use school buses in the middle of the day when not being used for schools. Another suggestion has been to establish bus routes in town. But that's difficult if you're elderly and shopping. Being able to walk to and from a bus stop is not really practical, particularly if you're carrying something. So right now the vans are used on a call the day ahead to make a reservation basis. And in fact the demand is such that we're limited by the number of drivers we can get for the vans. Only one full-time driver and the others are all part-time. The other issue is we're recruiting a new nurse for the Council on Aging. You may or may not know one of the primary functions of the Council on Aging is not entertainment of the elderly, but intervention services, identifying those in town who are elderly and need assistance, probably usually living on their own. And the Council on Aging's job is to identify who those are and get them in touch with the appropriate state authorities. And to that end, we have a part-time nurse who visits people who are likely to need attention. But we have great difficulty retaining the nurse because we can only afford a part-time position and at the bottom end of the salary scale. So the previous recruit a year ago quit before she even started working for Concord because she got a higher paying job in Arlington. This latest nurse has just found the commute is too long for her. I think it's only a 16-hour-a-week paid position. So we're going to be looking for a new nurse for Council on Aging. Finally, on a technology point of view, there's been a lot of talk recently about how Alexa can be of assistance to the elderly. And I've been quite surprised by the very positive reaction I've seen from people about Alexa being a companion for widowed or widowed individuals. It's somebody to talk to in the morning, somebody to talk back to them, play music, find out what's going on in the world. And it's still very much the early stage from a technology point of view. But I think it's got a lot of potential in the future.
Thank you very much.
Question? Oh, you you first.
Would you repeat the statistics on the increase in the over 65 population?
Well, the statistics are in the long-range planning report, but the population in Concord is between 2010 and 2030 is increasing by 75%.
We importing those people?
It's called an aging population.
They are us.
They are us. We're all getting older.
5%.
Young people aren't coming into town.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Is the Council on Aging considering the purchase of an electric bus or a plug-in hybrid bus to replace the
It's whatever we can afford.
Okay, well they're cheaper to run, so the purchase price could be high, but the running costs are actually
the
lower.
capital budget.
Okay.
I just have one question. the Board of Health is looking for a part-time nurse as well. Is it a possibility to share a position?
That's a great idea.
Perhaps your director can talk with Ginger Quells.
I will do that. I'll ask her.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Great idea.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Sharing a nurse.
In terms of transportation, is there help that you offer for people trying to use Uber and Lyft as services?
Question maybe you could answer. Does Uber provide service here in town?
Yes.
Okay.
And Lyft.
Yeah.
The other problem is because most of the elderly are not computer savvy.
Right. So do they have mobile phones?
Not smartphones typically.
No smartphones?
No.
Hmm. Interesting. So I wonder whether there would be a possibility if they called, well, I guess it doesn't really work, does it? Because you've got to use the smartphone from where your actual location is. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
There had been, I believe it's still in existence, a group called FISH, Friends in Service Helping.
Yes.
But that's a volunteer driving thing.
That's
I'm
right.
wondering about putting that in a Lyft, Uber type situation.
Again, people can call up and ask for fish to provide them with driving subsidy, but it's a totally volunteer organization. So again, the service they can provide is very limited. And we need something that's probably more formalized. There's a group started recently, time that came out of fish, called Concord After 60, where people who are recently retired are able to provide assistance to each other. But those are the younger elderly, if you like, the ones who can still drive and get around. But that problem is going to get much worse as time goes on.
So just to sort of combine a couple of questions and comments, I don't know whether it's possible to use Alexa to call an Uber or a Lyft, but it would seem logical.
That's something
So-
I'm looking for, yes.
Alexa isn't, you can't, once you're on the street, it's Wi-Fi in the house. It's not Verizon on the street. So you could get a ride out, but you can't get a ride home.
Good point. In some cases, that would be good.
Good morning, I'm Lee Smith, I'm the co-chair of the Concord Housing Development Corporation, or CHDC. I'll try to be brief given the hour. At our meeting last week, the CHDC voted to endorse and support Article 12 at the special town meeting, which for those of you who may not be familiar with it, a developer is proposing to change his, I'm not sure if it's a permit, but rather than build and create 2 affordable housing units in his project, instead pay the town a sum of $1 million, and that's because of a state regulation that would not allow those units to be counted on the state's subsidized housing inventory. The CHDC is supporting that because the sources of funds for affordable housing purposes are increasingly rare, and we recognize this as a good opportunity to bring some funds into the town to CHTC or the Housing Authority or other good sources to be able to use the funds. We prepared a memo that we provided to the select board where we make some suggestions as to uses of the funds, which include purchase and or buy down of existing units, leveraging those funds to create new construction, preservation of existing units, preserving the CHDC's small grant funding program, and also the suggestion of creating some type of revolving fund that would go towards affordable housing purposes. In addition, we're working with the Concord Housing Foundation on a revision to what's called APP 54, which is a decision-making process where if land or buildings become available to the town for purchase or otherwise that might be appropriate for affordable housing purposes, it's kind of a notification process so that any of the housing groups are aware of it, and to the extent they are interested or can provide assistance, can participate in the process as the select board reviews that. Next Wednesday, I believe, the 26th. There's I believe the third meeting of the housing groups, which consists of CHDC, the Concord Housing Foundation, and the Housing Authority, whereby we just describe what we're all working on and discuss common interests and goals and see how we can help to work together.
Great, thank you. Yeah.
I'm wondering if you've heard from Habitat for Humanity, either of you, because they came to the Community Preservation Committee meeting, and they're interested in working with both of you guys to build a house. And I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name. Rick, you mentioned 2 different land purchases. They're looking for land. It sounds like there might be some land. And so we referred them to CHDC, but it could be either of you. Have you heard from Habitat?
I went to that meeting and heard her talk, and
Okay, great.
I think she mentioned at that meeting that Habitat does not do rental units, so they wouldn't be a good match for us, but they might be a good match for another.
They could be a very good match for CHDC. I'm not
Yes.
aware of them contacting us yet, but I would be very interested to pursue that.
We can talk after. I'll give you the contact.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you. That's helpful to
Yeah.
make those contacts.
I'll be brief too because of the hour. I'm Bob Donnellan, Chair of the Town Donations Committee, and we've come through our busy season of distributions, a wide variety of scholarships, summer camps, and maintenance of things such as the cemeteries and small parks, like Chamberlain Park, etc. We have spent a considerable amount of time over the past 6-9 months working with the Hugh Cargill Committee. They've got unique challenges recently with a slowdown of fundraising at the same time as an increase of needs of their beneficiaries. So we're working with seeing where we can help out from an income distribution a little bit beyond interest and dividends. There's a wide strain of thought about capital appreciation. A small percentage of that over the years is fiduciary responsible as well as legal. And so hopefully we're going to be able to help mitigate their challenges in the near future, because we're pretty far into those discussions with not just the legal side of it, but also the funds side, what they were originally intended to do.
Questions, anybody? Thank you very much.
I can go quicker.
Okay, good.
Joanna Boynton, Chair of the Concord School Committee, and Bob's here for the region, but just on the Concord School side. Probably the biggest thing is we are in the queue at MSBA to see if we get funded or approved for funding for a possible new middle school. So, and that won't come back, that notification won't come back until mid to late November, mid-November hopefully. We'll learn, so that's going to be a big discussion either way, because our middle schools are in serious shape, and we most recently had some issues around fire alarms and safety, so we're talking a lot about that. And the only other thing that would be of interest is that next year we will go to taking Sanborn and Peabody and putting the 6th grade in one building and the 7th and 8th in another. It's something that's been in several years discussion, better for the kids and the overall learning environment. And so that's a big change for families. And finally, we'll probably begin negotiations with teachers. The K-8, their contract expires end of this year, so we will begin those probably sometime in the winter, early spring, to negotiate a new contract, which obviously will be of great interest to many. And if there are any questions, that's pretty much it for the CPS side.
Okay, Robert Fromm, Chair of the Regional School Committee. There are a couple of items here I'm going to mention that are really pertaining to both districts. We have 2 school committees in Concord and 2 districts, so it's interesting to note that. We're well underway with our zero-based budgeting process. We've had a couple of updates, and I know our staff both Dr. Hunter and Jared Stanton are very busy with working on a completely new accounting system, and that's going to provide more transparency and, you know, being able to tell where money is spent and flowing and so forth. We also reconstituted 2 subcommittees that have also been very busy. One is the budget subcommittee, which is meeting later on today at noon, and we also, as a continuation of our efforts with the high school campus, we pretty much have stopped with the campus advisory committee. We now have created the campus oversight subcommittee that both Joanna and I are on, and that leads us, of course, into a discussion about a couple of articles that we have at special town meeting. You know, one, Article 6 is, you know, concerning capital improvements, and Article 7 is concerning a conceptual engineering study that we need in order to determine, you know, the different uses of potentially of various parts of the campus. The campus is almost entirely in a groundwater conservancy district, so anything that changes there as far as impervious surfaces, etc., needs to be approved by other town committees, NRC and possibly the ZBA. And so, you know, we need this study to make intelligent decisions. And that's basically what I have. Any questions?
Thank you both.
Hi, I'm Peggy Briggs. I'm here today for the Concord Light Board. And we've had a fairly quiet summer. We are looking at rates and rate design, and have had an ongoing debate, which I suppose you've heard about, whether to shift more of the bills to fixed cost versus variable. And concern is how that would affect lower end users versus the higher end users. So we have been going at this for most of the year, and we'll continue to go at it until we can kind of come up with a compromise. We're strongly protecting the discount for seniors, which has been in our rates. Let's see, sustainability, master planning. We have an RFP out, which I think there's going to be a selection for a new financial system. And once that's up and running, we'll be able to have a new rate design, which has time of use rates. It has to do with smart meters and financial accounting system that can read the smart meters, and then we can do things like time of use and other things to really try to sell more electricity in the off-peak. So that has to do with electric cars and other types of heating, cooling systems and that sort of thing. But it's pretty quiet and nothing controversial right now.
Always nice to hear.
I would like to keep it that way.
Morning, David Bell, Conservation Stewardship Committee. The town is responsible for monitoring conservation restrictions that cover privately owned land. We're continuing to do our visits, and we have a couple of vacancies if anyone would like to volunteer to a non-controversial committee.
Good morning. The tail end, Jean Goldsberry from the Commission on Disabilities. We met with the building commissioner to talk about how we can assist and be collaborative in our work and hers. We also met with the Natural Resources Department to discuss making some trails or parts of trails in Concord accessible through a grant from the Mass Office on Disabilities, and that's still up in the air whether that's going to go forward this year or not. And we are looking forward to a presentation from the library about the new construction and expansion at our next meeting.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
Sorry, Jean Goldsberry.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you all very much.
I just wanted to, one quick issue. I should have mentioned earlier. Sorry about that. Gotta get up here. Yeah, in order to explain about the two articles we're bringing at town meeting, we're gonna have 2 or 3 meetings that will be open to the public. September 19th tonight at 7 p.m. at the high school Learning Commons. September 25th, which is next Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. at Ripley. These are what we call coffees. They usually generate a smaller group.
Bob, can you just go back for 1 second? So it's tonight, what time and where?
7 p.m.
And where is it?
Learning Commons at the high school, which is the library.
Yeah. And then Tuesday?
At 9:30 a.m. at Ripley, room 3. And then our joint meeting is the following day on the 25th, Tuesday, at 6:30 p.m., again at Ripley. And then we have 2 public forums, September 26th, which is Wednesday, at 6:30 p.m. in Carlisle at the school community room. And then the following night, Thursday the 27th, at 6:30 p.m. at the, again, high school Learning Commons.
Bob, will any of those meetings be televised?
I don't believe so, no, because there's other things
Yeah,
going on
yeah.
and the staff is a little bit of other stuff. Great, thank you.
It should probably be worthwhile if at least it can get on the website.
Yes, I will speak to your.
Thank you, everyone. Just something.
Bob, at the, as you know, the FinCom has a meeting on the 27th.
Yes.
Will you have a representative there?
Yes.
We're working on that.
Okay, all right, good.
Yes,
I think there will be lots of questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, everybody. We had a big turnout today.
Yeah.